And so we are going to have this global report, human rights report. We feel that this is a human rights issue, and therefore we need to speak up, and we need to also let our people know what is going on, so that we will not just sit and allow ourselves to be abused year after year, day after day, time after time.
Give her some love. At this time, dear family, the next speaker is our good brother, Carney. Brother, are you ready?
Thank you, Brother Menelik. How's everyone doing? Great. All right, great. It's a pleasure. It's truly a pleasure to be with you here today. My name is Maurice Carney, and I am one of the co-founders of Friends of the Congo and its executive director. Really want to thank you for having us. It's a great opportunity to be here with Minister Akbar Mohammed. It's truly humbling to be on the panel with him. I was with him yesterday in Alabama, learned a tremendous amount just from a short presentation that he gave. Brother Joe Beasley, long-time laborer in the African world, and with Reverend Jesse Jackson. It's a pleasure to be here with you as well. And everybody know Brother Mukasa.
Black power.
Everybody just give a black power for the brother.
Black power.
All right.
Long live Africa.
That's right. So thank you very much, and certainly want to thank the support network of Friends of Congo here, Brother Kwame, Brother Sibukwe, and the rest of the others, and Sister Justine, who is here with us. We're gonna be brief. We've been talking about the continent, and my charge is to talk about the heart of the continent, which is the Democratic Republic of the Congo, former Zaire, which is literally and figuratively the heart of Africa. The heart of Africa. Now, when I say the heart, you can really liken the African continent to a body. And if you know about the functioning of a body, if the heart is under attack or arrest, the body cannot function. Is that correct?
That's right.
Well, the heart of Africa has been under attack. Raise your hands if you know or if you've heard that millions of lives have been lost in the Congo since 1996. Raise them high. The United Nations says it's the deadliest conflict in the world since World War II. The greatest humanitarian crisis at the dawn of the 21st century, where at least 6 million black people, Africans, have lost their lives from 1996 to 2007. Imagine if 6 million white people lost their lives anywhere on this planet. What would the outcry be?
It'd be good for us.
Wouldn't the whole world know about it?
That's right.
Wouldn't you be mobilized to want to bring an end to it?
Sure.
Unfortunately, as it relates to the Congo, there's been a great silence. Why? Several reasons why. Black lives are not as valued as other lives. We see the devaluing of black life in the heart of Africa. So millions of Africans can die, and it'll be just like a tree falling in a forest. So what Friends of Congo is doing is joining in solidarity with the Congolese to build a solidarity movement that we argue is as important today as the Free South Africa movement was yesterday.
That's right.
Why do we say this? If you look at the Congo itself, just briefly, indulge me. When the European powers established their spheres of influence on the African continent, the 1884-1885 Berlin Conference, Congo was central to that enterprise. The Berlin Conference is also referred to as the Congo Conference. And at the Berlin Conference, one of the biggest point of discussion was what was going to happen with the Congo. And as a compromise, as a form of preventing European powers from going to war to control that great prize, they made it a free trade zone where European powers could have their way throughout the Congo. So they called it the Congo Free State. And unlike other African nations, Congo was not colonized at the Berlin Conference. It was given to King Leopold II of Belgium as his own personal property. I'm going to say that again. It was given to King Leopold II of Belgium as his own personal property. That means he owned it outright. And within a 23-year period, he extracted rubber and ivory, valued in today's dollar figures of over $1 billion. And the Congolese people had to pay a dear price for that. Within that 23-year period, they lost half of their population. An estimated 10 to 15 million people lost their lives as the king exploited the Congo. Now, there was a global movement that rose up to take the Congo from the king. You had figures like George Washington Williams. Some of you may be familiar with him. He's the one who coined the term crimes against humanity. John Hope Franklin wrote a biography on him, the biography of George Washington Williams. Fought here in the United States in the Civil War. Came out of the Civil War as elected official in Ohio. But he saw fit to take up the Congo cause. He was not the only one. You had William Shepherd, a Presbyterian minister, who went on a mission in the Congo, lived with the Luba people, learned their languages, translated into English, documented the atrocities that were taking place, passed information on to figures like Mark Twain, who wrote King Leopold's Soliloquy, other figures like Sir Conan Arthur Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes, Booker T. Washington from right down in the South. He also wrote on the Congo, on the crime in the Congo. W.E.B. Du Bois. So we had major figures that were raising their voices at the time in defense of the Congolese people. And they were successful to the point that success was defined, and that is taking the Congo away from the king. But it wasn't given back to the Congolese people. It was then turned over to the Belgian state in 1908 to rule as a colonial outpost, where they continued the extraction process. From 1908 to 1960, Belgium ruled Congo as a colonial outpost where they extracted gold and diamonds, copper and cobalt, and most notably, uranium. The uranium that the United States used, the Manhattan Project, to build its atomic weapons that ultimately was dropped on Japan, came out of the Congo.
That's right.
So you see, we have a history of Congo serving the West for its purposes, while the Congolese people live in abject poverty, in slavery, forced labor. But it's important to note that Congolese have been resisting throughout this period. One of the most notable figures was a gentleman by the name of Simon Kimbangu. Simon Kimbangu resisted Belgian colonialism. And as a result of his resistance, he was imprisoned for sedition. And he was in prison longer than Nelson Mandela, from 1921 to 51, 30 years for resisting Belgian colonialism. So Congolese people were not just sitting and lying back, but they were fighting the oppression, fighting the domination. And finally in 1960, they were able to determine their own affairs and elect Prime Minister Patrice Emery Lumumba in May of 1960. He was inaugurated, giving Lumumba for That's right, Patrice Henry Lumumba. He was inaugurated on June 30th. And if you remember Lumumba's speech, he said he wanted all that wealth of Congo to be utilized for the benefit of Congolese in particular and for Africans in general. And that sent shudders through the West. So within weeks he was deposed by the CIA, led by Larry Devlin, the chief of station. There's a book that he wrote called Chief of Station Congo. And Devlin said something that sticks to me to this day, and it's critical for each and every one of us to understand. He said, we overthrew this democratically elected government of Patrice Lumumba because we felt that if we lost Congo, we would lose all of Africa. Congo was the first country, post-independence country, that the United States intervened in what, under the principle what they call the Congo Syndrome. That's the idea that they'll go into Africa and establish governments that are friendly to U.S. policies. And those that are not friendly to U.S. policies, they'll overthrow them. So, within weeks, Lumumba was overthrown and then assassinated. And the U.S. didn't stop there, but what they did, they imposed a dictator over the Congolese people. For over 3 decades, Joseph Desiré Mobutu, who bled the country dry and provided access to U.S. corporations and U.S. interests. When the Congolese people continued this struggle in an attempt to control and determine their affairs, in the late 1980s, early 1990s, a pro-democracy movement grew up, a non-violent pro-democracy movement. Instead of the United States supporting this movement, what it did was to support an invasion of the Congo. They'd gotten tired of Mobutu. It was time for him to leave, but they still wanted to control the affairs of the Congo. So they reached out to their allies, or proxies, in Rwanda and Uganda, who invaded Congo in 1996, invaded Congo again in 1998, and that triggered what the United Nations says is the deadliest conflict in the world since World War II, where an estimated 6 million Congolese have lost their lives. There was a peace process that took place, and the Congolese elected Joseph Kabila as their new president in 2006. The Rwandans and Ugandans have removed their troops, but they still kept proxy militia inside of the country. And some of you may have heard in the news that of late, the proxy militia called the M23 just defeated in the Congo. Those proxy militias were backed by Rwanda and Uganda for a 17-year period. And just this November, finally, for the first time in 17 years, the Congolese defeated a militia group that was backed by Rwanda and Uganda. So there's some prospects for peace. It's important to understand why this group was defeated. Of course, the Congolese military reorganized itself. African troops came to their side under UN leadership. What they established was what they call a Force Intervention Brigade. About 3,000 South Africans, Tanzanians, and Malawians went to the side of the Congolese to fight these militia. But the most important, the most critical reason why the militia group was defeated was because of a phone call that President Kagame got from the United States and the United Kingdom. The Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, William Hague, called President Kagame of Rwanda. Secretary of State John Kerry called President Kagame and shared with them, we do not want you to continue to back the militia group inside of the Congo. The militia groups in the Congo, Rwanda and Uganda, have been able to get away with what they've gotten away with because the United States has protected them.
That's right.
They're U.S. allies. In fact, President Obama, when he was a senator, passed a law calling for the United States to stop financing and arming Rwanda and Uganda. In 2006, he passed a law. But when he became president, he didn't implement the law. He didn't do anything about it. And there was a global uprising, let's say, a movement that put pressure on the administration for it to change its policy in the region. And then in 2012, it started changing its policy and finally withheld some aid from Rwanda. It did it again in 2013, and this was decisive in bringing an end to the militia group that was backed by Rwanda and Uganda in the Congo.